Just before I go, I want to keep you up to date with those events in Ukraine. I'm afraid it's a really distressing story, but we are keeping across these events. This is the devastation, a Russian rocket landing in effectively a city centre here. This is an area with restaurants, with shopping malls in Kramatorsk. It hit at 7:30 in the evening, and so lots of people out, lots of people in restaurants. We are starting to hear from witnesses worried about potentially large numbers of people being buried under the collapsed rubble there. As you can see, rescue operation is underway, of course. They're trying to get people out. Definite details on numbers are difficult to get hold of right now, but we will keep bringing you the details as and when we get them. Right, that's it from me. Thanks very much for your company. I'm Lewis Vaughan-Jones. This is BBC News. Bye-bye.
Hello there, this is your update from the BBC Sports Centre. We start with that damning report into the state of cricket in England and Wales, which concluded racism, sexism and class-based discrimination are widespread within the game. The independent report delivered its findings after a 2-year investigation, the chair stating it remains a stark reality that cricket is not a game for everyone. The England and Wales Cricket Board say it's a moment to reset, and the England men's captain agrees more has to be done. Yeah, let's see how he does this year. And that is all the sport from us for now. We'll see you soon.
Tonight at 10, senior doctors in England vote to go on strike next month over pay. Operations will be cancelled, and it comes on top of junior doctors walking out just days before.
We say fight back!
But the long-running nurses' strike is over. We'll bring you analysis on how disruptive the latest strike action could be. Also on the programme, President Putin thanks his security forces, telling them they stopped a civil war. Nicola Bulley's death was an accident. A coroner says she drowned after falling into a cold river in Lancashire.
I hope that His Majesty's coroner's clear and definitive findings will put an end to ill-informed speculation and conspiracy theories.
A BBC investigation uncovers the illegal trade in virtual child sexual abuse material. And Lewis Capaldi announces a break from touring after struggling to finish his set at Glastonbury.
And on Newsnight at 10:30, we'll go deeper behind the headlines and speak live to key players on today's big stories. Plus, a first look at tomorrow's front pages.
Good evening. Thousands of hospital consultants in England have voted to strike over pay in their longest industrial action since the 1970s. The senior doctors will walk out for 2 days next month on the 20th and the 21st of July, which means operations will be cancelled, but urgent care will still be provided. Junior doctors, and that includes doctors who've spent up to 8 years working in hospitals, are already planning to strike, and that's from the 13th to the 18th of July. But it was announced today that the current strike action by nurses won't continue. Our health editor Hugh Pym reports. And Hugh joins me now. Hugh, just how disruptive is this latest strike action going to be? OK, for now, Hugh, thank you. This evening, 2 Russian missiles have hit the centre of the city of Kramatorsk in the Donetsk region of eastern Ukraine. At least 4 people have been killed by the strike, which hit a shopping centre and restaurant. The governor of Donetsk told Ukrainian television the city centre was crowded with civilians when the missiles fell. It's feared people may be trapped under the rubble. President Putin has tried to rally Russia's military and security services by thanking them for preventing civil war from breaking out. In a speech today, he insisted his rule was not weakened during Saturday's rebellion by the Wagner mercenaries and suggested Russia's regular military showed restraint by not being drawn into any fighting. Well, meanwhile, the leader of neighbouring Belarus has said the head of the Wagner group is now in Belarus. Our Russia editor Steve Rosenberg reports. Our international editor, Jeremy Bowen, is in Kyiv for us. So what impact will all of this have on the war in Ukraine? Jeremy, thank you. Jeremy Bowen in Kyiv. A coroner has concluded that Nicola Bulley's death was accidental and she did not have any desire to take her own life. The 45-year-old went missing on a dog walk in St Michael's-on-Wye in Lancashire in January, prompting a major search, which led to intense public interest and a social media frenzy of conspiracy theories. But today, the coroner ruled she drowned after falling into cold water. Here's our correspondent, Danny Savage. The former Health Secretary, Matt Hancock, has told the COVID inquiry that the government made a colossal mistake in its planning for a pandemic before coronavirus struck. He said the government had wrongly assumed the virus couldn't be halted, and so there wasn't enough work done on prevention. But he told lawyers that he'd been assured that the UK had the best system in the world to deal with a pandemic. Bereaved families accused him of blaming others for his mistakes. Our health correspondent Catherine Burns reports. Now a look at some other stories making the news today. The boss of Thames Water, Sarah Bentley, has quit weeks after being forced to give up her bonus over the company's environmental performance. Miss Bentley became chief executive in 2020 and has been at the helm as water firms faced criticism over the release of sewage in rivers and the sea. The company behind Boots the Chemist says it will close 300 of its branches throughout the UK over the next 12 months. Stores close in proximity to each other are at risk of closure, but the BBC understands there will be no redundancies and staff will be offered work at nearby stores. The former foreign correspondent and broadcaster Dayman Leslie, who reported from more than 70 countries and witnessed some of the key moments of the 20th century, has died. She was 82. Dayman reported from Northern Ireland, Bosnia and Afghanistan and interviewed a series of famous names, including Muhammad Ali. A BBC investigation has found that paedophiles are using artificial intelligence and virtual reality technology to create and sell lifelike child sexual abuse material. They market the illegal content using accounts on mainstream platforms, make images to order and even offer to create regular supplies for subscribers. The National Police Chiefs Council has said it's outrageous that some platforms were making huge profits but not taking moral responsibility for safety. Angus Crawford reports. A long-awaited independent report into cricket in England and Wales has found racism, sexism, classism and elitism are widespread in the sport. England cricket captain Ben Stokes says he is deeply sorry to hear of the experiences of people who've been made to feel unwelcome. The sports governing body says they would use this moment to reset cricket. Our sports editor Dan Rowan reports. The rapper Stormzy and the Crystal Palace forward Wilfried Zaha have agreed a deal to buy the non-league club AFC Croydon.
What's my toxic trait? If I see a boy with the same kettle as me, then I toss that.
The artist, who grew up in the South London borough, is part of a 3-man consortium, including Palace's former head of player care, Danny Young. The club competes in the 9th tier of English football. Now, this was the crowd that watched and sang for Lewis Capaldi at Glastonbury on Saturday. As the singer struggled with his voice, the crowd took over and continued for him. Well, he's now announced a break from touring for the foreseeable future and said he was still learning to live with the impact of his Tourette syndrome. John Donaldson reports. Time now for a look at the weather. Here's Stav Deneos. How's it looking, Stav?
Hi, Tina. More unsettled, actually. Good news for some of those people that want some rain. Good evening to you. It was a cloudy day today. Outbreaks of rain affecting much of the northern half of the country, all tied in with these weather fronts. bit warmer and brighter further south and east. Take care. Tina.
Thanks, Dav. And that's BBC News at 10. Newsnight with Victoria Derbyshire is just getting underway on BBC Two. The news continues here on BBC One, as now it's time to join our colleagues for the news where you are. Good night.
11 million people are estimated to be experiencing food insecurity in the UK. Why? Tomorrow, the Chancellor will summon the UK's 5 economic regulators to try to force down prices for consumers. Tonight, new figures seen by Newsnight show the scale of food insecurity across the country. Can government intervention help as people continue to struggle?
My grandchildren used to come and stay with me during the holidays, but I've had to reduce that down because I can't afford to feed them. I can barely feed myself, and I mind feed extra mouths.
Also tonight, Russia launches a fresh missile strike on the Ukrainian city of Kramatorsk, days after the chaotic Wagner mutiny. How have the events of the last days played out on the battlefield? Mark's here with his analysis of how Ukraine's counter-offensive is progressing. And the COVID inquiry hears from the former Health Secretary Matt Hancock for the first time, with some jaw-dropping revelations.
The doctrine of the UK was to plan for the consequences of a disaster. Can we buy enough body bags? Where are we going to bury the dead? And that was completely wrong.
We'll talk to a bereaved relative who was in the room. Good evening. The financial and economic shockwaves of recent years have affected millions. But the impact has been particularly severe for some. Yet it remains shocking that here in the UK, one of the 5 biggest economies in the world, some people are struggling to buy enough food to feed themselves. New figures from the Trussell Trust, seen by Newsnight, show the nature and scale of food insecurity across the UK.